everybody. I'm Denise Smith of our Mettaverse. His Holiness the Dalai Lama teaches that observing anything from a different perspective can reduce anxiety and increase happiness and help to find opportunities in challenges and joy in pain. Joy in pain, okay? If we have that option and we know it's an actual option, let's go for it, shall we? The subject of dependent origination that we'll be talking about tonight is just that. It is a perspective. It's a useful tool in helping us understand life and reality. Dependent origination shows us that nothing exists on its own. Everything comes into being through causes and conditions. And in the past few hour Metaverse classes, some of you have been with us as we explored emptiness, then what you record, you project, then relationships, not just with people, but with everything. Interconnected with those topics is the subject of dependent origination. As you listen tonight, you might simply hold this question. What would change in my life if I truly had the perspective that nothing stands alone? Please take a moment to set your intention and motivation for our time together, and then I'm going to introduce Venerable Robina. It is truly an honor to welcome Venerable Robina Courtin. She is my main teacher. She is fascinating and fun. Back to our Metaverse. Venerable Robina is a Buddhist nun in the Tibetan Mahayana Buddhist tradition, a longtime student of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. She's known around the world for her directness, her humor, her unwavering commitment to helping us understand our own mind, not as something mystical or distant, but as something we can actually work with, refine, and transform. She's excellent at not only teaching, but waking us up. Her teachings bridge ancient wisdom with very real modern life. If you'd like to follow more of her work, you can find her teachings through her website, robinacourtin.com. I'll put that in the chat. The Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, fpmt.org, and various recorded talks are available on YouTube and other Dharma platforms. We are very grateful you're here with us tonight, Venerable. Thank you.
Denise, darling, thank you so much for having me. Always happy to come to your dear group. Happy to see you all in California, where it's still bright and shiny, I suppose. We're nice and dark here now at 9 p.m. in New York City. So, darlings, the point is Buddha's teachings, this business of dependent arising and emptiness is also captivating to our intelligent minds. And it is true, it is the point of the Buddha's teachings. But I think the really good question is, in terms of our ordinary daily life, what's the point? How does it impact? And that's why when His Holiness was asked, how is the best way in daily life to apply this concept of emptiness, which is so abstract for us? He said, see things from a different point of view. So that's the dependent arising side. So just for a second, the framework of this in terms of these, what they call the wisdom teachings. You've got the wisdom teachings and you have the compassion teachings. They say a bird needs two wings, A bird needs two wings. What's this edge light? What is this? Okay, a bird needs two wings, wisdom and compassion. And so the wisdom sounds a bit abstract, like I've got to go off and be a clever physicist or something. But it's really not like that. Compassion wing, that makes sense. We kind of, when we think of Buddhism, we think of spiritual teachings, we always, I think of compassion. But the wisdom one is fundamental. Dalai Lama says, I remember Lama Zopa said, compassion, or meaning well, he said, he put it like that, meaning well is not enough. Compassion is not enough. You need wisdom. So let's look at what that means in a really down-to-earth way. So they talk about how dependent arising or dependent origination is the way of expressing how things exist conventionally. And then emptiness is described as how things exist ultimately. That's how they talk. So let's look at the dependent arising part, because that's what you talk about. So I think it's really evident that why we suffer, this is Buddha's deal, why we suffer, he says we're not in touch with reality. And the reality we're not in touch with is this fact of dependent arising. So I think if you just look at any experience, you look out the world and you look at yourself when you have a problem with somebody, and that means you're feeling, having a problem means you're angry or you're jealous or you're depressed or you're attached or you have low self-esteem or you're arrogant or the other person has low self-esteem or they're arrogant. And you can see straight away when we talk in those simple terms about problems in with each other, is there's a feeling of separateness. It's fairly clear, I mean, it almost seems corny. But then suddenly, and then you look at another time when you're connecting to each other and you're smiling at each other, whether it's the shopkeeper or your husband or your child or in the next door neighbor, when someone smiles, in other words, when there's love present or kindness present or empathy present, immediately you can see it really obvious. And it sounds corny, but it really is profound. There's a feeling of connectedness. And it's a nice word, connectedness, but it's really obvious, I think. So what Buddha is simply saying is actually his presentation of his own views of the universe. He's basically said he's found a method how to stop suffering. And then, of course, so he has to present what he means by suffering, and then he presents the causes of suffering, and then the methodology of how to accomplish it. That's really what Buddhism is. And central to that, absolutely central to that, is this one of lessening, that really you could argue lessening, that the root of that is this strong, over-exaggerated, neurotic, and it's very real, neurotic, fear-based, mistaken sense of a concrete, separate, set in stone me. So when we say separate, I mean, it's fairly obvious. We're separate. There's me and there's Denise, and there's me and there's Freddie, and there's me and Mary or whatever, it's clear. But we can see the suffering of feeling separate. So whether you're angry or violent, it's very clear there's this dominant feeling of a big fat me barging through life. And if you're really depressed and low and totally depressed, and then there's a total feeling of being separate from other people. It's fairly evident, But when anybody who's fairly upbeat or people who get along in life, you can see it's because they feel connected to others. And of course, that is compassion, but the Buddhist view is it's rooted in this business of wisdom. So that means we have to analyze a little bit what the problem is, what is the root cause of us feeling separate and therefore either causing harm to others, and dominating the world, or going deep inside yourself and wanting to despair and eventually kill yourself, These are the symptoms of this. He's saying these are the symptoms of this wrong sense of how we exist, and indeed the wrong sense of how everything exists. And of course, when you start to hear these teachings, even if they're presented simply, it seems kind of abstract, but I think we can really see the evidence of it, So this particular point about see things from another point of view. We all know this. It's not as if Buddha has got copyright on this. Our mothers tell us this. We hear these amazing things from wisdom. It's not as if Buddha, and that's the key point, he's not a creator. He's simply a really incredibly sophisticated observer of human nature. It's the simplest way to put it. I mean, it might surprise us to say it so simply, but that's exactly what it is. And he came from the genius Indians. They're the ones who, I think I'd say this without being mistaken, these Indians who created this incredibly sophisticated technique called single-pointed concentration that enables you to plumb the depths of your own mind, I think they discovered the mind. I mean, the mind's always existed, but they discovered how it functions, what it is. And I mean, these teachings, even in the Hindus before the Buddha, extremely extensive, clear presentations of the human, our human experiences internally, the mind itself and how it functions. So the model of the mind that the Buddha uses, because Buddha came out of that amazing system, then he diverged in his own direction. In fact, I always quote this, and I'm sure you've heard me say it before, perhaps, or you've heard it. The Dalai Lama says it was these amazing Indians more than 3,000 years ago. They're the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self, exactly what a person is, and of course that comes down to what the mind is. And that really is their expertise. I think only maybe now in the modern world are people, all the best brains in our culture are now really discovering these genius Indians and therefore the Buddha, because he went as far as he could go in that system. Then he diverged in his own direction, in particular in relation to his own direct experiential findings about the nature of self, and of course specifically therefore his teachings, which are how he which is where he diverges, is in relation to how things exist interdependently, so okay, let's look at, so then this was one of sees something from another point of view. I think it's really obvious. Again, yourself. If two of you are chatting away and you're friendly, you're connected, you smile at each other's jokes, you're being harmonious, that means you're being patient. That means you're not being angry. It means you're being empathetic. It means you're not being self-centered. It means you're listening to the other person. So we can see immediately when you're more open and your mind is more spacious, you can hear that other person's point of view without having a panic attack. But if you're both having a fight, well, forget it. It's utterly impossible. You can see it when you're two people even slightly angry, even slightly up in arms, you can see the rigidity of each of the person's minds. And a person watching can see how absurd it is. We all know that, even though we're also in the middle of it. We all have that. We all have these relationships. And we know your mind gets gripped by your own sense of righteousness. And really you can see how that when you're caught up in those miserable states of mind, let's say this anger, for example, forget the others, there's a vivid sort of, it dominates your mind. You can't see clearly, like everything's cloudy, and you've got this strong sense of an unhappy self. It's so clear. You're feeling, in other words, you're feeling threatened. And you can see when people are really extremely angry, they are literally what paranoia is. They're seeing conspiracy theories all around everything. They literally have this threatened sense of existing in the world. And some people live in this terrible, most appalling states. And that's described in Buddhist views as from this, the root of it, the root neurosis or the root delusion they use in the Buddhist psychology, is this completely primordially deep concrete sense of a concrete eye, and therefore everything else is concrete. In other words, we all know it's set in stone. We say it, black and white. We say it. We say these words, we know them. So this is evident to anybody. It happens to be, I would put it this way, that Buddha is pretty good at presenting, at explaining how it works psychologically, which is what one uses as a Buddhist for your practice. So we know the last thing you want to do, if you're even just discussing what movie to go to, and you don't want to hear the other person's view, the last thing you want to do is listen to their damn view. Because you're right, we're all right. Because when you got anger, you're right, and the other person is wrong. And we know, I mean, we know these things backwards. So of course these things, because they're such habits, it's easy to hear, oh yes, see things from another point of view. It sounds lovely, but when you're caught up in it, and the habit is very strong not to do that, it just takes time. And I think this is an added point, but I think it's such an important one. We know, for example, if you decide to become a musician, it usually means you know nothing about music and you want to learn to become a musician. So you start off humbly, knowing nothing, and you know it's going to take years of hard work, of discipline, of squeezing your brain to turn into a musician. So we are prepared for the hard work, and we know we're a work in progress, and we struggle and we study and we study and we play and we play and we pass our exam, we go to the next one. So we have a sense of a long-term result, and we are prepared to do the hard work. We know that when it comes to accomplishing anything. But my feeling is we don't have that same view when it comes to a spiritual path, because we just don't, I think we make it a bit hippy trippy and kind of you cross your fingers and hope for the best or something. But the Buddhist approach is there's very clear methodology, just like there is in becoming a musician. So, of course, we have to decide if we want Buddha's methodology. We can decide on our own, there's no problem. And my sense is often we feel if you start following a path, a very specific set of methodologies, you're becoming a bit fundamentalist if it's religion, and you sort of follow your own. I mean, they can do that. We can do what we like. But the Buddhist approach is very clear, presenting what the goal is and then what the method is to get there. So speaking simply, the goal, as far as this view we're describing here, Buddha has found from his own direct experience that every mind, and the lovely word in Tibetan, we say the word sentient being in English, but actually the Tibetan word, the translation of that sentient being is the translation of, is a very delicious word. It means literally mind possessor, sem chen, mind possessor. So he says there are trillions of mind possessors, and what he's found from his own inner experience, working hard on his own mind, he has found, which he says is the job he's achieved himself, that the neuroses in our mind, the unhappiness in our mind, all rooted in these unhappy neurotic states of mind. What he has found, and this is the simplest point, what he has found is that they are not at the core of our being, so therefore we can remove them. So basically, the word nirvana is literally meaning this, you know? So it refers to, it's like, it's a term that refers to the cessation of suffering and its causes. And what he has found is, and this is the presentation he presents, his very first teaching, the Four Noble Truths, that he's found what is suffering, and he presents it at different levels. Then he's found there are causes of suffering, because it seems to me if you've got a problem, you have to identify the problem. In order to solve it, you've got to identify the causes, otherwise you'll never do it. So he identifies very clearly his view from his own experience of what the causes are. Then the third one is that there is the state of being free from suffering and its causes. And then, of course, the fourth one is how to do it, the methodology. So it is a very laid out path, you know, which I still think it's surprising to us as a spiritual path, because we don't tend to think it's like as rigorous as that. In the same way that we think being a musician or a cook demands discipline and clear theories. This is exactly the Buddhist. This really is the Buddhist view. But I think that what I'm getting at is the biggest problem, even if we do buy into that, is we give up too easily. We don't have enough confidence that we are a work in progress. We get so overwhelmed by the smallest obstacle. It's sort of like when if you're learning to be a musician and you suddenly play a wrong note. It's like the way we have with our dramas. We practically kill ourselves and we convince we're not possible. I can't do it. I'm no good. I'm a disaster. So that's the big stumbling block. The stumbling block is we don't have much confidence. We don't have much sense that our mind is not set in stone. In other words, we really do buy into all these views that Buddha says are a load of rubbish. We really do think we're set in stone. We really do believe it's not possible to change. I mean, when you hear that you can change anger, I mean, someone like me who's got a volatile personality, my mother didn't have to teach me anger. I promise you. I had it down. You know, I mean, I knew, and this is where if you just listen, and interestingly, as a theory to the Buddha's view about reincarnation, which is presented really extensively and actually is central to the entire Buddhist view, this idea of consciousness not being physical, not coming from a creator, not coming from nothing, and not just merely being the brain. It's got its own momentum, its own continuity, and even positing this idea then can tell us how deep these habits are. We didn't just get them from our mother and father, you know. These are, Buddha says, these habits of grasping at ego, and then the main voice of ego, which is attachment, and we'll talk about this, and then the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants, which is anger. And these are the three poisons Buddha talks about, which kind of sounds so cute, but really the definition and the analysis of just these three states of mind goes profoundly deep in Buddhist psychology, I tell you. So getting a sense of those three and realizing we have been entrenched in these for countless lives, and we come into this life fully programmed. And this is the radical difference with the Buddha, not with our mother and father's tendencies, but with our own tendencies. So we've been buying into this load of rubbish for many, many lifetimes, and no wonder they're deep habits. So this is when we understand this can be a little bit humbling and realize we're not set in stone, and every moment does count, and we have to learn to work hard on ourselves. A friend of mine who's a therapist and a Buddhist, you know, as she puts it, to have enough courage to have our hands in our own shit, because it takes a lot of work and a lot of courage to look into your own mind with this stubbornness that we have and this sense of righteousness to honestly see the anger and see the pain and see the jealousy and see the low self-esteem and realize that that's why I'm suffering. But no, it's not set in stone. It is not my true nature. And that's why I think it's so important. I find it very encouraging when you read, like, you know, you read stories about, or you read the teachings, or you hear the teachings from some of these people who put them, you know, who are putting their money where their mouth is. I mean, if you hear the Dalai Lama, he makes a lot of effort to sound very, very ordinary. He doesn't look like some unusual yogi, you know, but he has to be very encouraging. If he's the proof of, you know, of 70 years of practice, more 70. I mean, he's 90 now. He took on the job of running Tibet at the age of 15. That's 75 years ago. It's hard to imagine. And anybody can see, anyone who's got a half a brain can see from his history what he's accomplished on this planet. But the really crucial point for me is can see that he's a happy, relaxed, easygoing person. I mean, it's that if that's not the proof of the pudding, I don't know what is, but we sometimes forget that. Oh, we'll go, oh, that's just a Dalai Lama. He's different. No, he's not. He's the proof that you can do it. And that's why it's important, I think, we have teachers and people who are the living example, because we might feel hopeless in ourselves and think we are set in stone and I can't possibly change my mind. But when we see that it's other people in front of us who can, we need to see that that's okay, it's possible. And then to get this sense I'm a work in progress and just go one step at a time, one day at a time, one step at a time, And then the other point is, which we I think totally forget because we are overwhelmed in our ego sometimes, is to have happy thoughts about ourselves, to rejoice in our hard work. So okay, so then the thing here is, then the Buddha's idea is that, this mind of ours came into this life. We found our way due to our past actions. This is karma to this particular mother, this particular father, this particular life, these particular circumstances. And some of us have better circumstances than others. We can absolutely see that. But all of these, and this is a very powerful way of applying the idea of things are dependent. This is a major way. This is a major way of applying the Buddha's teachings about how things are dependent, and it's not easy for us, is that as Lama Zopa puts it, that everything we experience, one, this human body, two, the mind in this human body, our tendencies, three, all of our experiences, whoever we meet, however they see us, whatever they do to us since we're born, and even the way the physical world impacts upon us, because these are the four ways that our past karma ripens in the present, that all of this. And this is where we really can feel that we are set in stone and really feel that things are not dependent, that all of this is, as he puts it, our own karmic appearance. Everything we experience, we set the stage for it. We created it, quite literally. And this is I mean, see something from another point of view seems manageable, but this one is not how we think. And even people who are very devoted Buddhists, you've got to really think about this one clearly and really apply it every day and really think about it and deeply in your meditation, and remember to apply it 100 times a day, because it's the one thing we absolutely have no inkling of. I mean, to say that someone just knows that what is happening to them is the fruit of their past actions, you've got to be a highly advanced person to know that experientially, which means you have clairvoyance, which of course from the Buddhist perspective psychologically is totally part of what we can accomplish. But who has that? None of us. And so, one of the ways that this ego works, this concrete sense of a concrete me, is in terms of its being an innocent victim. Somehow, somebody out there made me. We say it. I didn't ask to get born. It's not my fault. So we either blame God or you blame your mother. I mean, nobody blames their father. It's always the mother, even though he played an equal role in giving you part of your genes. But I mean, it's always we have this, and I think looking into this in ourselves is very powerful to see when you're caught up in the anger, when you're caught up in the jealousy or the low self-esteem or the depression. If you really feel it, you feel like this innocent victim. Somehow it's unfair. This shouldn't be happening. I don't deserve it. This is very powerful, I think. This feeling of I don't deserve. And then the other feeling, which comes from attachment, so let's look at these two in the intimate relationship between these two, which is central to Buddha's explanation of why we suffer. And these two are the main voices of ego, this grasping at an innocent, at a concrete me, that, these two, let's look at them, because attachment is the main one. Attachment is the main voice of this sense of a separate me, the main voice of this me that somehow and these are the philosophical views we have on this planet, perfectly frankly. One is that God created you. So he's the boss. He created the universe. And if you have a faith in a creator, you'll have a good life because you'll at least know he's got a plan. That's fine. Someone's got a plan. But if you've got the materialist view, and we all do have it, but I think we don't follow it through really properly. If we really do believe that we are the handiwork of our parents, and let's say you don't have the view of reincarnation, if you really do believe, it's your philosophy, that you are only the brain and your mummy and daddy created you, I mean, it's quite a powerful concept. That means I agree, they are the blame, actually. They really are. So don't believe your therapist when she says you shouldn't blame your mother. I disagree with that. If you really believe your mother and father made you, please think that through. I mean, if, it's sort of like Frankenstein and his monster. You can't blame the monster. Frankenstein created him. So if, or like the maker of a car, you can't blame the poor car. It was Mr. Toyota who created the crummy car. So if God is, I mean, you don't want to blame God, so we'll forget God. But mummy and daddy were very happy to blame. And I think if they really did create you, if they really did give you anger and jealousy and depression, as well as love and kindness, then they are responsible. I agree with you. They are really. But I don't think we follow this through. So for me, it's the more I've been a Buddhist all these years and trying to apply the Buddhist teachings about karma, which, by the way, are a perfect example of dependent arising because it's cause and effect. The things exist independent upon causes, and Buddha's saying the main causes are coming from me. Oh, I've got this light shining. I never heard of it before. I've suddenly got this light frame. They've given you a frame around your little screen. My God, how amazing. It just went off. Anyway, so then what I'm getting at is that this idea that you are the handiwork of yourself. It's a really incredible view, actually. I mean, I know all I know is when I first heard the teachings on karma, when I was like 31, I realized that's what I've been missing all my life. I can't tell you, I just loved the view of karma. I wasn't shocked by it at all. It just somehow explained things. I mean, I'd been a devoted Catholic as a little girl, but I never thought of him as my creator. And I mean, I never blamed my parents. I didn't have guilt with my parents. But when I heard that I'd created myself, I loved that idea. I mean, I think that's great. I'm a bossy girl, so it suited me fine. I can't tell you. So let's look at the implications of this as being a brilliant example of cause and effect, which is dependent arising, that things come into existence. In other words, put it in terms of ourselves, that our life, what happens to us, who we meet, what we think, what we do, these are the result of causes. That's clear enough. We all get that. That's called science. But of course, the causes that we think are mummy, daddy, the Catholic nuns, the outside world, Mr. Trump. It's always out there. And there's this innocent, and this is a real example of having a separate sense of self. We feel that. We feel I'm this separate me over here, then all these things out there, either making me happy or making me suffer, conspire, and they are the causes, and the causes are out there somewhere. We absolutely believe that happiness comes from outside. We absolutely do believe that suffering comes from outside. Look how we respond. Again, that's that innocent victim thing. It's very strong, this feeling of being a separate independent I, having nothing to do with anything else, and especially me having nothing to do with what happens to me. I'm a victim of it, isn't it? I think if we look inside, we're going to see this very clearly. And the Buddha would say, it's a misconception. It's not like that. This is the consequence of grasping at this view, he says, of an innocent victim, me, concrete, set in stone, not fair, poor me. And then having the strong entitlement of attachment. I only deserve good things. And then the outrage and the shock when good things don't happen. How dare you do that to me? I don't deserve suffering. I think that really, these are all expressions experientially of these mistaken, he would call them literally mistaken views deep in the bones of our being. But we need to unpack all this. I mean, this is just, this is not evident to us at all. We've got to start to really be our own therapist, as Lama Yeshe says, which is the skill that Buddha gives us. I mean, he gives us this incredible ability, these skills to learn to listen to your own mind and own responsibility for what's there, which is tremendously hard because the instinct of ego doesn't want to do that. We would rather blame the mother and the father and the boyfriend and the weather and Mr. Trump. Which doesn't mean they don't play roles. They do play a role in our life. All Buddha's saying is, yes, Vincent's my boyfriend and he punches me in the nose. It's true, you saw him punch me in the nose. So you can say that he does play a role in my suffering. But the Buddha's saying, we've got this interdependent relationship here from 47 lives ago, and if there's a punch coming now, that's just the fruit of one of my punches. Or equally, if Vincent is kind to me, again, we feel like we're an innocent victim who just won the lottery when someone's kind to us. No, that's the fruit of my past actions. This takes us time, but when we can start to apply this, it's sort of like you begin to own all your experiences. You own that you feel that you are a part of your life. You are a part of your experiences, not some innocent victim of somebody else's kind of conspiracy, which is the suffering of this concrete sense of self. I mean, this is just talking. So the one of karma is very, very powerful. So let's just remind ourselves of it. And I think many people who are Buddhists say the word, "Oh yeah, it's karma," but we don't dig deep enough into understanding it. But very simply, if you think of your life, you can divide all of your life into these four categories. So the first one is the type of person you are, the person. In this case, we're a human, as opposed to a dog or an insect, okay? So what's the main cause of that? Buddha would say, getting a human body, your mind finding its way to your present mother's human womb is not just some accident. You, at the time of your past death, not long, not a few hours before your past death, one of your own karmic seeds, as Buddha would say, because everything we think and do and say stays in our mind like seeds, and then the time ripens. At the time of our past death, we must have been relatively peaceful because one of our virtuous karmic seeds of past non-killing was triggered, which already, even before we stop breathing, they go into it in great detail in the texts. Even before we stop breathing, this particular seed was triggered, and then that already was programming us a few weeks later to go to our present mother's human womb, to join the egg and the sperm of our father. This is already programmed. They mightn't even have met each other yet. But we've already set it up. And this is a very surprising concept. There's nothing remotely like this either in Christianity or in materialism. First of all, that's just the human body. You are the cause of it. It's the fruit of your own past virtue. So even this alone, if we look at the world and see there are 7 billion humans, but 40 trillion, 40 million, 40 trillion insects in one, like mosquitoes, no doubt, in the tree in one summer evening, then if they're all sentient beings and there's only a few humans and a lot of mosquitoes, then excuse me, you kind of won the lottery. Okay, some pretty crummy humans, we don't disagree. But to get the human body, just that's the fruit of one of your karmic seeds being triggered before you even stop breathing, and already you're programmed to go to your present mother's human mother. But there's three other types of karma yet to be put into the plan. The second way your karma is now ripening in this life is you've got a personality. Your mind. I mean, we can see the world is full of Hitlers and Mother Teresas and all the ones in between. So clearly, Mr. Hitler has a human body, but look at his mind. Look at his tendencies. Look at what he did with his life. You can see that's the radical difference. The mind in this human body. And there's your Mother Teresa's, and anywhere in between. So the second way that our karma ripened, and that would have happened at the time of our death as well, that all the karmic seeds that would be then our own personality, quite literally. And what else are they? They're a bunch of habits. So this is a big shock because most of us, even though we might be Buddhist, and talk about karma, we still kind of feel we got our anger from our mother, and we're good at music because of our father, and we like football because of but you might see, that's the thing, you might share the way Buddhism would say it. Like my mother, for example, was a musician. And she saw her little Bobsy, me, that I had a tendency to be good at music. So she taught me music. So we'd all say, well, Robina gets her music from her mother. Well, no, she didn't. My mother came into this life with a tendency to be good at music, so she studied it and nourished her tendencies. I came into this life with my tendency to be good at music, and then my mother, because I had the good fortune to have a mother musician, she then helped me nourish my music. And it's the same with my anger, my depression, my anxiety. This is really important to think about because we don't want to own it. We think it's the boyfriend's fault and God's fault and everybody else's fault. That's the instinct of ego. No feeling that it's mine and I brought it with me. But then at least you can be humble enough to own it, including all your good qualities. They're yours, honey. They're yours. Why you're good at music, you must have done it before. Why you don't lie is because you must have told the truth before. So be happy to own our personality, to own our tendencies. And the fact of the matter is, if they are my tendencies, then I'm the one person who can change them. If they really are set in stone and they are part of my brain or my genes, which my mother gave me, then I don't have much choice. I'm locked with it. I'm stuck with it. But if it's my mind, I can change it. That's powerful. The third way our karma is ripening in this life, which is pretty obvious, is everybody we meet. Since we are born, we're very social beings, aren't we? We've got this strong connection with. I mean, we bumped into human beings and dogs and rats and cockroaches since we were born up until now. And every one of those people, whether they were kind to us, gave us $1 million, or punched us in the nose, we have got a strong history with everyone. There's no way on the planet we could just randomly bump into people that we've never met before. Because you see, the Buddha's point is that this law of karma, it's a natural law. He's not a creator of it. He didn't invent it. He's not a creator. It's a natural law. When we say natural law, we understand that. That's science. Botany is a natural law. That means botanists think it through. What it means is there's not the botanist who first really articulated botany, let's say in the modern world. That person didn't invent botany. Botany has always existed. Things have always been growing, but they just observed it. They identified. See, if Einstein is right in saying that relativity is a natural law, he didn't create relativity and then get copyright on it. He identified it. That's what natural law means. So Buddha's deal is he's not a creator. He says that morality and ethics is a natural law. He says killing is wrong because guess what, folks? People don't like getting killed. That's a natural law. Jesus, and this is a really good point, I'm not being critical, but the Christian view is that killing is wrong because God said. And that's how we hear religion. And that's the dogmatic one, that God is the creator. So it's wrong because God said. I checked with a Catholic priest. I said, what defines something as a sin? He said, what is a sin, meaning what is a negative action, is doing what God said not to do. Now, if God is the boss, if there's a person who is a creator, who did create the universe, who is the boss, who runs the show, then that's perfect. But Buddha says that's a mistake. He says that's a misconception. He agrees we've all got the power to be infinitely wise, infinitely compassionate. We can all become a Buddha, and that sounds like God, the qualities, but not a creator. We don't need creating, he says. I mean, that's very shocking for Christians to hear it. Or Muslims, they can't. It's like worse than being a communist, to say that. So anyway, the point of Buddha's saying is our consciousness comes into this world programmed with our own past, all of our good qualities, all our good tendencies, all our kindness, all our good fortune, all our ability to, have money, some money in the bank and some friends and some health, not just accidental, wasn't given to you. You're not the recipient of somebody else's plan. You created this. I mean, for me, this is the most powerful view, and this is the most brilliant example of cause and effect. And cause and effect is one of the perfect first examples of how things exist interdependently, opposite to the ego's view that, well, it's just all good luck and bad luck. I mean, we use those words so casually. Oh, it's just good luck and bad luck. Buddha would say that's the most superstitious thing he's ever heard. It's like thinking you get roses and weeds in your garden. It's just good luck and bad luck. No, it's got a logic to it. And when you learn botany, you know where a weed comes from and you try to avoid it. And you know where a rose comes from and you try to plant it. That's the point about karma. You learn the law and then you know that you can be in charge of your own life now and in the future. That's the essence of all Buddhist practice, and that's dependent arising. Things have a cause. I'm in charge of it. So I've said a few things here.
So, Robina, how would you paraphrase number 3?
Okay, I haven't. So which one? Sorry. Oh,
Experiences
okay. I
similar
haven't
to the
finished. There's
poem.
4 yet. Let me finish the fourth one. So the first one, the first way that karma ripens, they call it the fully ripened result, which is a type of birth, animal, human, and the other types of beings called spirits, gods. These are the Buddhist view. This is the Buddhist, and you've got to remember, as much as we might or might not like this, you've got to remember the Buddhist view coming from these Indians who created this technique called single-pointed concentration, who have discovered these subtler levels of mind that don't depend upon the brain, that they don't call a soul. It's nothing mysterious. It's your own mind, but at a much more subtle, more powerful level. And this level of consciousness, this level of cognition, is not posited by neuroscience and is not posited by modern psychology, very simply. So you mightn't like it or not like it, but I'm telling you, from the Buddhist from the Buddhist worldview, from the Buddhist literature, from the experience of the Buddha and anybody since then who's practiced it, this is the Buddhist approach. Consciousness is not physical. It's got much more subtle levels. We're not the handiwork of a creator. We're not the direct handiwork of a parent. We bring our own stuff with us. It's a very, very different view, and I agree with that, but I happen to like it. What can I say? And I'm trying to prove it wrong. I mean, Buddha might be wrong, you know. I'm trying to prove him right. So the first way our karma ripens is the type of rebirth, human. And from the Buddhist perspective, that's the fruit of a lot of virtue to get a decent human body. Second, the mind in this human body. Our mental tendencies, very simple, our tendencies. This is called the intentions or tendencies similar to the cause. Well, obviously, if you've got a tendency to be good at music, it's because you've done it before. If you've got a tendency to be good at math, because you've done it before. If you have a tendency to be good at anger, you've done it before. Hardly rocket science, you know? So that's all your tendencies. The third one, people, how they see you, how they treat you, love you, hate you, trust you, don't trust you, believe you, don't believe you, give you things, steal from you, whatever it is, all your happy experiences and all your suffering experiences, and pretty much your life is divided into these two categories. This is the part that's most shocking to us, is that every one of those experiences is the fruit of actions that you have done personally to those very sentient beings in the past. And he's talking 1,000 lifetimes, 5,000 lifetimes, because it couldn't be any other way. It is not possible to meet a person you haven't met before. It's not possible for someone to hate you if you haven't harmed them before. It's not possible for someone to give you some money if you haven't been generous in the past. This is the way they talk about the logic of karma. And this is absolutely the exact I mean, not the opposite, but just doesn't even exist in our life. We assume these things are good luck and bad luck, you know, because we cannot find a reason, especially, I think, if we look at the suffering we have. I think one of the main causes of our suffering is why is this happening to me? We will say, I don't deserve it. I think this is a tremendously powerful reason most of us suffer. And then most of us that have compassion for all the innocent victims, you know, because we can't see why. And I mean, it's a reason to despair. I agree with you, you know. That's why I always use the example of these young, I might have told the story. I use it a lot. 2003 or something. Yeah. Richard Gere invited Dalai Lama to New York. I'm sure I've told you this story before. And we have talked about this before, but this is dependent arising, people. This is seeing something from another point of view, which can completely radically change the way you see the world. So this is the point, but it takes time. It's huge. So this example I've taught, but now it's in the context of this. I'll tell you again. Richard Gere invited a bunch of Dalai Lama to come to New York, and he decided we had a meeting about working with prisoners. I was working with our prisoners, you know, and he thought he might just invite former prisoners to come and meet the Dalai Lama. So people like me were invited as well. So like 20 former prisoners, male, female, black, white, Puerto Rican, Mexican, a whole cross section of Americans, you know. And they had an amazing time with His Holiness. They went to the teachings, they had personal meetings with him. It was a wonderful time. And they all talked about their suffering and their, you know, the injustice of the world and the prison system, blah, 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 blah. And also he also invited two young Tibetan nuns, okay, two young Tibetan nuns who'd been sexually abused and tortured in Tibet. And and they were talking, and this is what's so fascinating. This is what was interesting for me, because I was there. He invited people like me as well. It was really, I put it this way, it was really clear. The way they were talking, you could tell that if you wanted to quantify suffering, you could argue that theirs was worse than everybody else's. You could argue that, in a sense. Imprisoned, you know, tortured, sexually abused. But you could tell from these young women, and this is what I want to talk about, talking about the psychology of attachment and anger, which run our lives, and they're the main voices of ego, these misconceptions deep in our bones that are the opposite to dependent arising. These young women, you could see that they weren't angry. Everybody in the room it was evident they weren't kind of like enraged with their eyes wide open. Why is this happening to us? We don't know why, and we're enraged and despair, which is how we do suffer. I mean, there's no question how we suffer. The trauma that people experience because we don't know, we don't have an explanation. Now, my feeling is if you've got faith in God, and you really believe God has a plan, and you have faith in God, then you don't suffer either. I've met Christians and Muslims who have incredible faith in God, and I think that's a superior view, honestly, than the materialist view, because the materialist view says your mother made you, your father made you, and it's all genes, and we don't have all these answers yet. So you just got to pull your hair out, and go crazy. I would say, honestly, I mean, I really say that. It sounds peculiar. But these young women were not angry. But let's analyze this. Let's look at what that means. So as I said, the root delusion that Buddha talks about, the one that's rooted in the wrong, in the opposite of dependent arising, is this concrete separate me. So deep ingrained, so hard to identify. And its nature is fear. Then its main voice, and this is what's expressed in daily life, is attachment. So attachment is this kind of multifaceted, it's kind of this emotional hunger that just feels I'm not enough, that no matter what I get, it's not enough. No matter what I achieve, it's not enough. No matter what I see, it's never enough. No matter how much I eat, it's never enough. It's this deeply painful experience internally, attachment. So because there's a sense of a separate self who's kind of like not enough, then naturally you hanker after something where out there, such that when you get it, it'll fill up the gaping hole. So then that's how we try to get happiness. We try to find the right people, the right food, the right this, because we're convinced when we get it, the attachment thinks this, then I'll get happy. So, okay, attachment is this emotional hunger, okay? And also it's got the deeper level of it, the much deeper level of attachment is like, it's like this sense of entitlement. And it sounds cruel, but this is really how we feel. This attachment, it just sort of, it assumes, it's always there, second by second by second, and it's driving us underneath even our good qualities. It's just this assumption that somehow I only ever must get good experiences. It's an assumption that I only must get the good things because I deserve only the good things. I deserve the good things. So when the bad thing happens, the shock of anger, aversion, and panic, how dare that happen to me? I don't deserve that. So that's why we go crazy with anger and rage, because we can't see a reason it happened. We know even in this life, or this, we didn't do anything to deserve it. So of course we suffer and we go mad. So attachment is the assumption that I only deserve good things. And then anger is the assumption that I don't deserve bad. And we go between these like 1,000 times a day. And we never question those assumptions. So let's look at, so these young women, this is my point now, having the view of karma, and you've got to realize this view of karma has been around for like 3,000-4,000 years. In India, they first observed it, and then the Buddhists, and then Tibet has been Buddhist for like 1,500 years. So the view of karma, which for us is completely mysterious, is in the bones of their being for 1,500 years. They totally, it's a given for them in the same way that Christianity or materialism are givens for us. You understand? So there's no drama for them. Karma. So because they have the view they created themselves, because they have the view that whatever happens, they must have created the cause, they own the good things, they rejoice in the good things. They don't have this twisted self-loathing that we have in the West. The Dalai Lama said he's shocked to see the depth of self-loathing in the West, which is a symptom of this wrong view of ego. But he said Tibetans just don't have it. Because they have a view of karma. They created themselves. They rejoice in their good qualities. They know they created them. They know they can create more of it. And they therefore have the courage to own the bad stuff. So these young women, little nuns since they're born, being little Buddhists. Of course, it's hard if you're imprisoned, abused, but they have an explanation for why it was happening, which informed their ability to handle their lives. So there they were, quietly telling this story. No anger, because they're not pulling their hair out saying, why did it happen? And they work with this as part of their spiritual practice. It's tremendously powerful. So at the end, one of them, there was tears. and she was quiet. And she said, this is my point now, of the basis of karma as a basis for putting yourself together, and then the basis of compassion. She said, and of course, we had compassion for our torturers, because we know we must have harmed them in the past, but even more because we know they will suffer terribly in the future. So this all of this is rooted in this view of dependent arising, of cause and effect, that everything we see, everything we do, everything we say has a role. It's a dynamic process, it's not just some kind of accident. No one knows why, good luck, bad luck. I mean, no wonder we live in fear. No wonder there are conspiracy theories, if you have that view, that everything's just kind of bad luck and good luck. I mean, it's about an appalling way, I think, to live your life, quite frankly. So the first way karma ripens, the type of rebirth. The second way your karma ripens is your own mental tendencies in your own mind. The third way your karma ripens is all, they call it experiences similar to the cause. So all the people out there you meet, whom you see, Mr. Trump, the politicians we might hate, they're all our own karmic appearance. When you have that view, it's sort of like, and okay, and the fourth one, sorry, I'll say the fourth one, then I'll say my words. The fourth one is called environmental karma, even the way the physical world impacts upon you. That's not accidental. So in other words, use one example of one virtuous action called non-killing. So the four karmic results of non-killing, and I think it's rare to have all these four. Maybe we have it in our lives. Have a look. One is to get a human body as the first result. Two, a tendency of non-killing. You'd wake up in this life with no thought to kill. Three, you wouldn't get killed or die young. Now look at the world. Look at the world. All the 7 billion humans, I would say the majority have a tendency to kill, which is a total tragedy. And that's because, anyway, there's all sorts of reasons, maybe no time to go into this tonight. The second one, look at the people who die young and get killed. I mean, look at them. Millions of people die young and get killed because that's the fruit of killing. Past non-killing, you won't get killed and you won't die young. And the fourth one, environmental karma of non-killing, is you be fat and healthy, you don't get sick, whatever you eat nourishes you. Even if it's a crummy, even if the air is a bit polluted, it won't make you sick. You'll be really healthy. So now look at the four results, or at least the three results in a human life, because you haven't purified all your other karma. You're going to wake up in this human body with a human life with a human body. But look at the people who've got a tendency to kill. Look at the people who die young or get killed, and look at the people who get sick. I mean, look at sickness. Look at the pandemic. The collective karma of billions of humans from who knows 10,000 lifetimes ago of collective killing. So everything we experience, good or bad, is the fruit of our own past actions over many, 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 many lifetimes. Now that's a big fat example of dependent arising. And I can say for my own self, I mean, I liked the view when I first heard it, and I've been a now Buddhist quite a few years. That's the one that I really try to seriously apply every day. And I can say to you this without any doubt, I'm not a fancy practitioner, that philosophical view that I've tried to articulate to myself and use every day to explain my experiences, that has been transformative. I'm much more content. I'm more fulfilled. I own my life. I don't blame so much. I don't get so angry. Don't get jealous. Don't get depressed, because it completely transforms your life. Because it all comes from these mistaken views in the mind, the view of this innocent victim ego who somebody else made and who just lives this life of good luck and bad luck. I mean, no wonder we're suffering. So this is an example of dependent arising, a perfect example of dependent arising. And talk about see it from another point of view. Wow. So I've said a lot of things. It's been a whole hour. So now you have chance. Let's discuss now. It's time to discuss now. Many things I've said, a lot of things I've said.
Yeah.
I loved your
Oh, sorry.
clarification. Sorry, I loved your clarification of dependent arising being the conventional
Yeah, conventional. It's the conventional way things exist. That's exactly
way
right.
things exist,
Exactly.
and emptiness being the
The
ultimate
ultimate
deepening
one.
and
Yeah, and they come
resolve.
together. They totally come together. And that's at a more advanced level. Karma is a really good first example, although it's pretty intense, karma. It's a very amazing one. Yes. Any points, questions. Nathan looked like he wanted to say something. Nathan, come
Yeah. Would you
on.
say that, or I'm kind of getting the sense that it's less of a meditation thing here. It's more of a grasping these concepts
Go on then.
and
Yeah, good.
I'm kind of trying to see if I'm correct here, and
No, good.
finding a way to apply like the
Yes.
things that are happening in your life with
Yes.
these things, and then maybe I think what would come from that is seeing more and more, through thinking that way. You would it would become more true almost.
No, that's the point. Because I mean, what we don't, I think what we don't, when I started working with the Buddhist view, learning these words first, I had to learn the theory and then decide I'm going to buy into it. And what I started to do was instead of just this usual one, which we don't think of as a view, the usual response, oh, well, it's not fair. How dare you dislike me? I don't deserve it. Which is how we talk when we're miserable, how we suffer terribly. So then I started to apply the karmic view. And then I realized I had this other view that it was replacing. I didn't think I had a viewpoint before. I just thought this is reality. I just thought that being an innocent victim was reality. So then by applying the karmic view, it really, what I'm seeing is it enables you, it kind of makes us, because it makes us take responsibility in a good way, we kind of become grown up. Ego's like a victim. And it sounds kind of cruel because life is tough. But when we can own responsibility, we can own it, then it really does help you become less fearful, confronting life better, and able to understand why things are happening, even though it's still theoretical. It's a good starting point. Do you get you understanding, Nathan, what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Good. Yeah.
And empowered to do something about it.
No, that's the whole point. Otherwise, we just despair and don't know why, and we either want to kill people or kill ourselves. And I think that's where, and I think this idea, yeah, okay, go on. So first, Toby, go on, talk to me, my dear. Yes,
Hi, Robina.
yes.
I've studied with you since the mid '90s in Seichin Ling in San
Good
Francisco.
Lord, really, darling. I love it. Wonderful.
Yes,
Good,
back then.
good,
And I've always loved your teachings. So,
good.
all of the notion that you're talking about of the continuity throughout lifetime after lifetime.
Yeah.
So I lost my mom. My mom passed away almost a year ago now,
Wow. Yes.
um, and I struggle with the notion of will we see each other again? And
Okay, that's interesting. Because you love your mother, or you want to see her again, do you? Now that's very interesting. That's a very interesting one, Toby. No, that's something that, um, yeah. I mean, the Buddha's view would be there's no question that not just this life, but you've had karma together. I mean, the way they say it is it's sort of like we've got very strong history with each other, and it's absolutely guaranteed you're going to meet again. But I think the point is because we're so, I think we would say we're very attached to that form, especially if it's your beloved, I mean, your beloved mother or one of my sisters and her beloved husband of 60 years died. And she's kind of joking and say she was so depressed and she used to be Catholic and she gave it up. She said, I'd be prepared to even accept a religion if I knew I could meet Nikki again. I said, yes, Mary, you will, guaranteed. But darling, he won't look like Nikki. She said, oh, well, I don't care then. I don't want that. I want to meet Nikki in his form. And that's the thing. I remember, what was it? What's her name? Reagan, Nancy Reagan, who adored her Ronnie. We all, if you know about Nancy, she adored her Ronnie, and she was devastated when Ronnie died. And she apparently asked Billy Graham, will I meet Ronnie again? And she meant Ronnie, and he said, yes, you will. So, that's the Christian teaching. You'll meet him in his form in heaven. So the consciousness, your dog this life could have been your husband of 5 lives ago. Your mother in this life, she might well be your sister in 3 lives. So you've got a karmic connection, no question. We've got to be a bit spacious about the form and shape they take. And if it was a virtuous relationship, if you had a good relationship, then you'll meet and have a very good relationship again in the future, no question.
Thank you.
Does that sound? How
Yeah,
does that sound? Good enough?
yeah. No, I'm not attached to form. I mean, because
Well,
I'm
that's
assuming
interesting. It'll be her
I will
mind.
I'll lose my form,
That's
right?
right, exactly.
I don't
That's it.
expect.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what that's why they say, that's how we can see this with some people. We don't say, oh, we must have met in the past, but it's like that with some people. Enemies as well. You meet some people, you can't stand the sight of them straight away. Strong karma between each other, strong history with each other. So, because we can see it, we've got friends, the ones we run to like a magnet in this life. We've got karmic history from past virtue. We have the enemies, the ones we can't stand. That's also a strong karmic connection. And then you've got all the strangers, which is 99.9% of the world. But we've met them all before in countless lifetimes. And that's why if we're trying to cultivate bodhicitta, we want to connect with all of them and have love and compassion for all of them. But then that's what they say too. All the relationships we have in this world. Look at the Russians and the Ukrainians. Look at the Tibetans and the Chinese. Look at the Nazis and the Jews. These groups we talk about group karma between people. It's so powerful. It's very, very powerful. You're going to meet again and again, and you're going to act out your own garbage or your own good. It's such a different view. Such a very different view, and this is where I think the Tibetans are a very helpful example of it. Like those young nuns, a very powerful example. Or another friend of mine, a Tibetan, Jigdrol, a monk. This is back in the 80s when they had a sort of a mini uprising. In 1987, there's like this mini uprising against the Chinese communists in Lhasa. And most of the people demonstrating were the young monks and nuns. They're the radicals. So, of course, when we think of demonstrating, we think of anger. So then we think, well, if the Tibetans don't have anger, why do they demonstrate? No contradiction, because they know that it's unjust. They know the cause of it, but they know it's wrong. So then they try to fix it. So I remember I said to Digdrol, he was telling me about how he had to escape, and then his father got murdered, his brother got murdered, it's terrible suffering. And I just said to him casually, Digdrol, do you ever get angry? And equally casually, he just kind of laughed and said, Robina, what are you saying, angry? Why? He said, why would I be angry? It's our own fault. That's the most simple way of saying karma. But that's very shocking for us because we really do believe we don't play a role in these things. Anyway, with all the friends and the stuff, and that's where also I think too, Toby, when we have the view of karma, then you don't suffer so badly when someone dies. You don't suffer so badly. And when they do die, you try to help them die well, and you're much more relaxed about it. And equally, when you're a mother and you have a baby, you didn't create that baby. You provided the opportunity for that sentient being whom you have history with to have a good human birth. So there's not nearly so much possessiveness, when you have the view of karma. Do you understand?
Yeah, so if I could ask you one more question.
Yeah,
I initially was thinking I would meet up with my mother again after I pass on from this lifetime.
Yeah.
But is that necessarily true?
No,
She
no,
may
it could easily be
here.
somebody it could easily be even now. Yeah, of course it could. Absolutely. Of course it could. But it's very hard to know. Unless you're really clairvoyant, which is what we are capable of achieving eventually, you might feel a connection with somebody, but and it's not as if, sometimes they do take on. There's the example, for example, Lama Zopa's mother. She died. She was an amazing old practitioner up in the mountains, and she got cancer and died. And then her reincarnation. There's a little boy 2 years after she died, and the sister, you mean Lama Zopa's sister, the daughter of the mother, she trekked for an hour to another village for some reason, and this 2-year-old boy of the village immediately ran to her and recognized her, and he said, and they took him home, and he recognized all the cows, and he said, where are my false teeth? And he knew where to look for everything, and he had the same relationship with many people. There was one old uncle in the family that he used to fight with as the mother, and he didn't want to talk to him in this life. So he could see the pattern of it, that he had many similar qualities, and people say that often you have similar qualities. So I always joke I must have been a Tibetan in a past life because I love meat. They all ate their yaks. You give me a meal. I don't eat meat much anymore, but you give me a meal, I want cows, fishes, livers, kidneys. I like meat, and butter and milk. So I wasn't a Hindu recently. We're vegetarians, I can tell you. So you can carry over those habits very strongly. And anyway, even too, Toby, even our habits, they all come from past habits, and it could have been a recent life. Absolutely. It could have been a recent life, So that's what our habits are. So yeah, you're going to meet your mum again, no question. And that's what you make these prayers and aspirations, maybe meet again, so we can be useful, you know. And the other thing to me too is a very helpful one, is when you have a problem with people. You see that in families. Some siblings just can't stand each other, some parents and children. And so when you know there's some karma to be together, to make it your practice to try and fix it, at least you've got some history together, because you're going to keep meeting again, and you better fix it now, because you don't put it off, you know. You want all the rubbish to end. It's a really important one. So
Do you
having
see
these rough,
Freddie's hand, Robina?
huh?
Do you see Freddie's hand?
Oh, yeah, where's Freddie? Go, Freddie, talk to me. Hi, sweetheart.
Venerable Robina, it's always such a pleasure to see you, and I'm so glad that we have the karma that I get to know you in this life, and I
Good,
hope to know you in many future lives.
good, sweetheart.
Um,
Wonderful.
I have a question for you. So you were talking about our parents and whatnot. Do you think that we choose, some of us maybe, I don't know, choose the parents based on tendencies that are similar? Like you spoke about your mom and the
Yeah,
music.
that's right.
My example is both of my parents had extreme depression, and
Oh,
I suffer with it. It's crippling sometimes. And I'm trying so hard to use the Buddhism to
yeah,
get out of it. But
I
like
understand, darling.
very much like Toby, I just lost my mom about 10
Yeah,
months ago. So
yeah.
it's the attachment of like her human body and her
Of course,
presence, which is,
that's
but
right.
back to the core question, do you think that perhaps I selected those parents with that illness to perhaps learn how to overcome it? Like,
I understand
I know
that.
you don't have a specific answer, but
No, I
like,
have a very specific answer. I'll be able to tell you exactly the Buddhist exact. It's very clearly answered. That everything. Okay. Oh, okay. To the word choose, and you mean that literally, then absolutely, but only the highest level bodhisattvas who are really, who've given up ego, who've got clairvoyance, and who can literally in advance know exactly where they want to be born and do that. So if you don't remember having done that, then you technically didn't choose. So what makes us go to our families is they're the lessons we have to learn. So we find the way, we go to the lessons that we have clearly, but it's not technically choice, but it's definitely karmic. It's no question. You go to where you have to learn, you know, and of course the tendencies. I mean, it's clear in families. I mean, my sister, I've got 6 siblings, there were 7 of us, and one sister died. But the sisters, we're all kind of similar. We're bossy, we speak fast, and even when I hear my sisters on the phone, I can't tell the difference. We all think I'm each other. So there's clearly many very strong, even though we're many ways very, very different. But there's no question about that, because in the simplest sense, the physical role, I mean, there's my mother with her certain genes, and there's my father, and we get born in their body. So of course we're going to have similar physical tendencies. That goes without saying. But we created the cause to have that physical body. So let's say my mother has a tendency to get cancer, then I created the cause due to my past killing to go to a cancerous mother. So we are always involved in it. But yes, for sure, the parents we have are the parents we deserve, the siblings we have. In that sense, aha, here's a lesson, you know, so you take it and you learn with it, rather than feeling like it's outrageous and how dare my mother do that to me. Or the good ones. I mean, many people adore their mothers and have one, and you know, it's very interesting. It's wonderful. So there's no question. But choose literally when you're highly advanced. You definitely choose, no question. You choose
thank
very
you.
consciously, exactly. And you could choose a very difficult rebirth. You could choose to come to a body where you're incredibly physically sick, because you got some karma to purify there, and also to help people practice virtue. So many times very special people will come into this world and be very sick or have problems or die young. That's not impossible as well. All sorts of things are possible. In other words, when you have a view of karma, it's a very different way to see the world, a very, very different way, you know. And of course, anyway, and until we're highly advanced, we're not going to see it directly, but we can. It's all there. The possibility is all there as we progress, you know, to see the past causes and to be in charge of the process. Do you understand?
Thank you.
Good,
Yeah, I
Freddie.
do. May
Good.
I ask one more question?
Of course, sweetheart.
Um, on a totally different
Yeah,
when we think about somebody like Hitler who had such, how do you believe that one person could have such a massive karmic
exactly. No,
effect
exactly. I understand.
when we have other people that we don't even know, that they
No,
stay
that's right.
humble in their
No,
little
exactly. But it's
town?
the same. But it's the same as the good side. I mean, look at the Dalai Lama. Look at the millions of people who adore the Dalai Lama. who and there are many people who probably, I mean, they say he's a Buddha. There could be many other people right now who are Buddhas, but nobody knows them, you know. So Mr. Trump, people supposedly, or either good or bad, whatever. So so Dalai Lama is a good example. So by the time you're on the path and you develop more wisdom and you develop more clairvoyance, you develop more power, you give up ego, you get bodhicitta, all these amazing qualities, you get more and more in charge of it, and you have more and more compassion. So then you are vowing to go for countless lifetimes, as long as it takes you to become a fully enlightened Buddha. So you choose to go from life to life with a lot of power, but your key job is because you want to help sentient beings, but they're not ready to be led to enlightenment. So what do? You can't give up on them. So you make a karmic connection with them. And that means it's eyeball to eyeball. There's this, you know, so you could argue that Dalai Lama went from life after life after life, hooking. They talk about how they hook sentient beings. He basically hooked every one of us. And so now in this life, the millions of people who adore him, because he did the work of hooking us. He got us 57 lives ago. We didn't want to be led to enlightenment then, but he connected with us. We liked him. And then 57 lives later, we see him again, and now we're ready, you know. So these dudes go from life to life to life, hooking sentient beings, right? So then you have to develop a huge karmic connection. So we could argue that Mr. Trump, for example, okay, if you look at the 4 ways that karma ripens, first, he's got a human body. Second, his tendencies. Now, who knows who he is, but let's just take the evidence on the face of it. It would see that Mr. Trump lies. It would seem he cheats. I don't know. It does seem perhaps the evidence is he's got some negative tendencies. Let's just say that. That's his mind. Now, the third karma is how you're seen and treated by others. So 50% of Americans, or maybe the world, hate the man, believe nothing he says, and think he's a monster. And the other 50% think he's a saint and believe every word he says. So that means everybody who hates him and thinks everybody merely who doesn't believe his words, that's the fruit of his having lied to us in past lives. So we don't believe his words. Even if he's speaking the truth, we won't believe it. But all the people who believe him, he's got the karma from having spoken the truth to them. So even if he's lying, they believe him. So how you're seen and treated by others is the fruit of your particular personal karma with that person. So Hitler the same. He clearly had a lot of power, and he affected many people over countless lifetimes. And my feeling is he had some karma with Buddhism, but he got it wrong. I mean, the swastika is a powerful Hindu and Buddhist symbol. He was a vegetarian. And he talked about superior beings, all these terms from Buddhism, but he kind of turned it to the bad side, you know, the dark side. But so he had a powerful karma from many people. And then, of course, all those millions of people, the Nazis, all those German people who worshipped the ground he worked on because they thought similarly. He didn't have to force them to believe his words. He spoke their truth, you know. And that's why Mr. Trump speaks the truth of all the people who like him. The racists, Americans, he speaks exactly to the Americans who don't like other races, who thinks the Mexicans should all go home, who thinks they deserve everything. I mean, he speaks to all those people because they think the same. That's why they adore him. Do you understand? He can't force them to think that. The Dalai Lama can't force us to become Buddhists. He just speaks the truth that we like, let's say, you know, or goodness or kindness, which is why many people are really moved by him, you know. Do you understand?
Yes.
Does that make sense? Does
Thank
that answer
you.
the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I do have another question.
Yes, good. Go, Nathan.
So I wrote it down because it's a little confusing to me, but I think it's
Okay,
a good
good.
question. So I wrote, this is a kind of a karmic kind of world that I'm seeing that is beyond us. Is time moving in the same way that it does here on the real world? You know, like,
Well, I don't.
could I
First of
could I
all,
be born
okay,
twice?
I'm not quite. I think you've got to tell me a bit more. I think your first statement isn't quite accurate. It's not as if there's another world. It's not as if karma's another world. If you just, I mean, we all know if you don't have the view of karma, we know we've got a past. We know the earth has a past, and there's history of people in the past. We agree with that, don't we? But that's not another world. It's just so the difference is Buddhism saying the people who lived 100 years ago, their consciousness died, they left that body, and now they've got a body in this life. So it's the same world. The difference is that consciousnesses go from life to life rather than just disappear into dust. But so that's the first part. But the second part is time is just a relative reality that we all use to measure what we call time, and we have a similar experience of it. That's all. Do you understand?
Okay. Yeah.
But
So
I think it's very true with time. You know very well, if you're in pain, time seems a lot longer. And if you're happy, time seems a lot shorter. So I think it's a very subjective experience, even though we can have a clock there, you know?
mhm. So I guess my question is,
Yeah.
if time, if this is all like beginningless, right?
Yeah.
And
Let's say that. Yeah.
the things that are happening in the real world are kind of happening along the same timeline, then what happened before the Earth was here, like billions of years ago?
Oh, okay. No, okay. So the Buddha's view is, broadly speaking, as cosmic as it sounds, if you think about it simply, there's matter and then there are minds. And so the Buddhist analysis of matter is how we used to think in the Middle Ages. The world is made of the four elements. So then you got, so then according to this model, never mind all this one, we've got matter and we have minds. And we have matter here. Our bodies are conjoined with our mind. So we've got a mind, and as a sentient being, our mind happens to be conjoined with a lump of matter. A rock is also matter, but it's not conjoined with a mind. So there's trillions of minds and there's matter, and the universes are made of matter. And the Buddha would say there are different kinds of universes, you know. And so these minds and this matter, basically, they're all the product of the natural law of cause and effect. This is a fundamental point. Talk about dependent arising. So this is where Buddha would argue with the creator. The concept, the Christians, for example, have very strong philosophical presentation of how there can be a first cause. A first cause, that in other words, that itself didn't have a cause, and that's what God is. Well, Buddha would say that's just not viable. He had all these intense philosophical arguments with the previous Hindus who had that view that there is an inherent uncaused Atman or self or soul. There's an inherent uncaused God. These views for the Buddha are completely not viable. So what does exist are countless minds and matter, and they by definition have to be beginningless, because you can't have a first cause, because a first cause implies that itself didn't have a cause, and that if you posit cause and effect, that's not possible. And so also Buddha says minds and matter are endless. So minds are beginningless and endless. And every second we are creating with our own mind, we are creating our own tendencies and our own future bodies and minds, because bodies and minds are intimately connected. We are the creators of this life, of past lives, and of future lives. We don't realize we are. It's not as if to be a clever person with a magic wand. You just have to think and feel and act and think and do and say. The thing of Buddha's view saying is whatever we think and do and say, that's the very process that programs us, that impacts upon our physicality, and then produces our future lives, our future environments, and our future bodies. Okay, Nathan?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So who was
I
that?
remember you one time, Venerable, saying that the number one weapon of a human is their mouth.
Is one.
Is their mouth.
Oh, yeah, well, that's true. That's, of course, that's the one yeah, that's right. It's true, isn't it? Without karma, for
So
sure.
we're trying to practice peace, and we're trying to practice virtue, so that everything we think is virtuous, everything we do is virtuous, and
Everything we say is virtuous. That's right.
is
That's exactly right.
virtuous.
That's the goal. So the first one is to refrain from non-virtuous mind, body, speech, and then to actively practice. And that's how we turn ourselves into a marvelous person. This is the method. That's how you turn yourself into a happy person. That's the methodology, you know. It's almost like uncomplicated. But we know about virtue, but we don't think it creates us. We just think, oh, I'm a nice person, then I drop dead, you know, as if it goes nowhere. Or you get rewarded by going to heaven. But there's nobody rewarding us. We reward ourselves. We produce ourselves.
For me, it feels like the most power is in the unseen.
In the what?
Unseen. It's in the subtleties.
In the subtleties, no, it's very true, isn't it? It's so true.
I wanted to
So you
share
people
one
we have
more story about Lama
go on then.
Zopa with your eye contact.
Uh,
Because I remember Karuna Caton saying, I want to help my brother. I want to help my brother. My brother is an addict. I want to help my brother. And Lama Zopa said, find a way that I can be in his presence.
oh, he said that, did he? Okay.
And so they went to dinner. They went to lunch. They spent time at lunch. And Lama finally got to connect eyes with him.
Uh-huh.
With that action of the connection of the eye,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Lama Zopa told Karuna he has done what he knows to do.
Okay, good. This is good to know.
So you want to hear how important by the way, the brother's no longer a drug addict.
Oh, that's good. There you go. Something happened. Wonderful.
And so do understand the importance of eye contact with
there
each
you go.
other.
So we've got a few minutes left, dearest people. Are there any more points to bring up? Anything you'd like to tell me or ask me, perhaps, or discuss with me?
Caroline, I'm counting on you for one. Got anything?
Nothing. Somebody's got something. Go, darling.
I have a question.
Yes, darling. Talk to me.
Hi, Venerable Robina. Hi,
Yes.
Denise. Thank you so much. I don't know what I am not visible. Why? Oh,
There
hi,
you go.
hi, hi,
Go
dear.
ahead. Good, darling.
I have a question about because I know that I have like I mix a little bit the fate and karma.
Uh-huh.
I am doing the Vajrasattva purification and
Yes.
35 Buddhas,
Yes.
and I'm asking them like I want healing, I want this and that, and
Go on.
I don't know if I'm in the good road or not.
No, I understand your point. So, okay, so typically, I know when I was a Catholic and the relationship we have with the Creator, because the Creator is my boss, the Creator made me, then we have this relationship of requesting blessings. You do have that, it's true. But there's, and then when people hear about Buddhism, and you hear that Buddha's not a creator, then they say, well, what do you pray to? So, but there's no contradiction. So it's not wrong. I mean, it's like, it's not wrong. If you've got a good, if you are close to a person, I mean, no, just the Buddhas. If we have a teacher, and then we see that when we do our practices and we visualize the Buddhas and we think our teacher is the Buddha. I mean, of course, you're praying and requesting them to stay close, to please protect me, to look after me. There's no contradiction. That's a very important way to develop a relationship with the Buddhas and with our Lama, because we've got a human heart. We need protection. We need support. We need love. Why not find it there? No contradiction. It's perfect. It's perfect, darling. It's perfect.
Mhm. So it can help us to purify our
That's exactly
karma.
what we do, the purifying, but we rely upon them. That's the point. It's a
Yeah.
bit like a doctor. The doctor doesn't, the doctor diagnoses you and gives you the medicine, but you've got to take the medicine. So Buddha's like that. Buddha's not like as if he's going to make you better. He doesn't cure you. He gives you the medicine, and you rely upon the Buddha, the doctor. That's the relationship. So it's a very strong one, and you want to rely upon. You need advice. You need support. We all need it. We're human beings. So it's a really good way to relate to the Buddhas. It's perfect, Ada. Perfect.
Thank you, Venerable.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
So what else, people?
Are we good?
That'll do, maybe. Enough for the evening. So dependent arising means things exist in dependence upon causes, things exist in dependence upon each other, things exist in dependence upon all sorts of things. And that's really, but the real point what I started with was when we're caught up in ego, it's as if nothing is dependent. Everything is poor me, everything's unfair, not fair, and I'm hopeless and I can't do anything. That's the nightmare. And that what Buddha says is being that way is suffering because that view is not real. Things are interdependent. When you've got to be in touch, that's why when you're loving and kind, you're in touch with interdependence right there, There's a connection between you. And that's what happiness comes from. We can see that. Because this whole idea of being a separate self, the Buddha says, is artificial. Because when you realized emptiness and you've got incredible compassion, you could argue that even though you're still in a separate body, your feeling is as if you are connected to everybody. There's no question about that. And we can see the suffering of being isolated and nothing and nobody, That's because we're not in touch with wisdom, not in touch with dependent arising. So slowly, slowly, people. All right. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, all you lovely human beings. Nice to see you all, and thank you for your questions, everybody. Changchob semchog rinpoche ma kie panam kie yu chig kie panyam pa me pa yang gong ne gong du pel ba shog. So let's just do a little prayer for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He's our teacher, my teacher. Some of us might know him. He passed away 3 years ago, but they've already recognized that he's a little boy in Nepal. We haven't got his name yet, so we have this little prayer where we request him to come back quickly. So I think of him just thinking Lama Zopa, this little boy up in the mountains, probably got some nice family, and we're just hoping he hears us, and and Dalai Lama wrote a little prayer, and the last line says, "And may his smile, may we be blessed by the glory of his smile. May he come back soon, and know that we're talking to you, Lama Zopa. Please come back quickly, okay, and continue to teach us. All right." And may we never give up, every one of us, never give up working on ourselves. We're a work in progress. Do not forget. All right, darlings. Much love to you all. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you all for being
Bye,
here. Thank you all
sisters.
for joining
Bye,
us at
sweetheart.
our Metaverse. If you would like to know anything more about our Metaverse, please see us online at ourmetaverse.org. Venerable Robina, as always, thank you for bringing your wisdom,
darling.
your knowledge, and your experience into our
Good,
lives.
darlings. Much love, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.